Hi everyone, if you like what I do, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and consider checking out my Patreon. Enjoy the video. For the most part, Terraria is a mysterious world, its history shrouded for many who wish to learn about it. While some important moments and great deeds are alluded to in the written records, much of its past appears to be lost, becoming the subject of speculation and folklore. Some legends, though, dare to chart the entire lifetime of Terraria, breaking it down into distinct eras and ages, from the birth of the universe itself to the modern day and beyond. And while these legends do not always match the written tales, the myths and whims of ancient stories rarely do. By the Lihzards long ago. However, the terrain can be extremely dangerous. Right, time to die. At the very beginning of time itself, the demon sultan Azathoth dreamt of existence, and so it was. His imagination was limited, however, and the reality he had conceived was barren and empty, bar a diffuse, nameless mist, his firstborn. Like her father, the nameless mist would conjure whatever she desired, but unlike her forebearer, she possessed the spark of innovation and desired to create a great many things. Doing so would leave her weakened though, unable to spawn all that she desired, so rather she birthed her own young to go out and create what she did not have the strength to. From her would come the Stardust Weavers, and from them would come stars, galaxies and planets, teeming with life. By the time the nameless mist reconstituted, the universe was as full and alive as she had dreamt. From her, successive generations of Altar and Elder Gods would come, each with their own machinations for the reality she had furnished. Among the first of these would be Lihzahrd, a chaos god of such potency that his deeds would ring out for eons to come. Joining him were other cosmic deities, each of which were uniquely cruel and disdainful of lower beings. There was one, however, whose deeds would become legendary, as he sought not just to subjugate a few worlds for his own amusement, but the whole of existence. Deformed in comparison to his nightmarish siblings, the creature that would become known as the Moonlord would be abused in his youth by the others and end up scarring himself to be more like them. In time, he would gain a modicum of their acceptance, but this only afforded him the opportunity to conceive of his ultimate plan. He would scour the universe, subduing 4 powerful worlds and their occupants to build an army the likes of which had never been seen. This was not enough though, and he desired a 5th, ultimate race to be born of his own being. To do this, however, he would need an incubator of sorts, on a planetary scale. He would start by creating a clone of himself, a brother almost, the creature named Cthulhu, who would be sent down to the planet he intended to create, and at the right time be slain so that its blood may fertilize the world with the Moonlord's seed, and from there his starspawn would emerge to join him and blaze destruction across the heavens. Of all the younger generations of old gods, none saw the Moonlord for what he really was, but was bar one, a cosmic being by the name of Nodens, an oddity amongst the cosmic pantheon, in that he cared not for conquest and domination, and would act to keep his siblings in check. For the longest time he had feuded with Lihzahrd, and would come to be the only one who uncovered the Moonlord's true intentions. Using his vast cosmic influence, the Moonlord convinced the lesser elemental gods that it was their desire to come together and build the perfect planet, a planet that would hold the essence of light and dark, sky and earth, good and evil, a planet that would come to be called Terraria. Having set out the designs for the world, the elementals sought out the service of great cosmic builders to construct the planet, but as the aggregation of material needed for such a project commenced, Nodens waited for his moment. He could not allow the Moonlord to spawn a galaxy-devouring horde, and so planned to place his own great power, the Shadow Flame, at the planet's heart to ensure that all heat, and in turn life of the world, would be sapped away, stunting the Moonlord's plans. He failed, however, to anticipate the tenacity of those he would challenge, and with the planet now unable to regulate its own heat, the elementals abducted the builders and imprisoned them within the planet's core, forcing them to work tirelessly to keep Terraria's heart burning. Ultimately, they would be forgotten by their jailers, believing that the flaw had been rectified. In truth, the builders devolved into demons and built rudimentary dwellings to keep from losing their minds, for despite their attempt at civility, they forever clawed at the planet's interior, desperately seeking a method of escape. Eventually, their efforts would lead them to uncover the dark heart placed by Nodens, something they would experiment on until it began to corrupt them, forcing them to be ousted from the underworld into the caverns where only certain death dwelt. Upon the planet's virgin surface though, the elementals seeded the world with their own blood, a substance which would become slimes, and eventually evolve into all life known to Terraria. It even became an all-encompassing mist that enshrouded the land, guiding life's development, something which would one day become the great race of nymphs and dryads. While the Lihzards are cited as the first race of Terraria, in reality there was another, a distant relative to the land-dwelling reptiles that resided deep in Terraria's oceans. Here they were the first to exploit advanced technology and build glorious cities, but it would all be hidden from the rest of the world, destined to be forgotten in their own inevitable calamity. This left the Lihzards to claim the land as their own, developing their own wondrous feats of engineering, but unlike their ocean-bound counterparts, they were able to use fire and burn fuels that would pollute the skies, leading to the nature elemental, primordial god of the nymphs and dryads, to step in and cleanse the world. This would only lead to the creation of one of Terraria's first monstrous beasts, the Lepus, that would go on to terrorize communities for millennia to come. Regardless, they continued to mine and pollute the world, so the elemental endeavored to stop them, and would place a curse on the seams of the Lihzard's beloved marble, turning those who mined it into horrific monsters. But in the end, this only impacted the innocent lower classes, leaving the rich to get away with yet more atrocities. The Lihzard's actions would cause the race of sirens, sky-dwelling beings of vast intellect, to tear away pieces of the world, elevating them into the sky to avoid unwanted attention. In this time it transpired that those exiled from the core had not perished after all, but had rather traversed the mantle of Terraria and emerged on a remote island where they continued researching what they knew of the Shadow Flame, imbuing items and weapons with it until the time it threatened to corrupt them once more, and they locked it away for all time. These beings would adapt to the surface, and would become what were termed goblins by outsiders, but their long-lived obsession with the Shadow Flame would not stay buried forever, as they began to feel their island home come under threat. In fact, the Lihzard's swift and ruthless development threatened the whole of Terraria, and the nymphs deemed that something more must be done. They appeared directly to the species as one of the elementals, commanding that they cast off their destructive ways, and stunned by the directness of the message, the Lihzards would comply. Soon though, dissent grew within their society, and splits in their culture would occur, eventually leading to a great solar war, where a perpetual darkness fell across Terraria, and the worshippers of the sun and moon fought bloody battles that would soon lead to the annihilation of their race. Taking physical form as penance for their actions, the nymphs would lead the survivors of the solar war to salvation underground, hiding them away in their peaceful jungle. There were survivors, however, who saw that their salvation was in fact imprisonment, so that they could not damage the world further, and they would flee into the jungle, becoming a tribal community, constantly on the run. The dryads would come to make their home in the jungle as they watched over the surviving Lihzards, growing huge living trees, imbued with their own elemental power, the seeds of which blew far and wide across Terraria. Symbiotic fungus living on the tree roots would share in the power and grow into wondrous mushroom biomes, complete with sentient mushroom people named truffles. It could be said that we should know the most about this particular age, for it is our age, the time of humans and their civilizations. Beginning as any other species had, the apes began to evolve sentience and spread across the ruined world that the Lihzards had left. Like the Lihzards, humanity progressed quickly but was unhindered by the machinations of the nymphs, causing great civilizations to rise and fall, including one led by a fierce tyrant, capable of taming the great slime kings. Soon the industrious humans would see revolutions in technology, leading them to the birth of artificial intelligence. Unwilling to share the world with a kind they saw as below them though, humanity caused a war of their own to break out, fighting with the AI until each side was inevitably destroyed, leaving barely a handful of humans remaining, and even fewer cyborgs. After the fall of their empires, the humans would adopt a simpler life, the majority casting off their technology, but still there was the desire for power, and the exploration of the unknown. To this end, schools of magic grew up, and the sight of wizards and sorcerers became a common sight, driven by the descent of the great mana god to Terraria, and the exploration of their true power. These magic users would do whatever was required to help a community thrive, whether that was to play a hero or a villain to be defeated. Other more malicious beings would evolve during this period, however, and seek their own dominance over the people of the world. One such creature was the Great Hydra, a thing of such intelligence and deviousness that even its eventual defeat could not contain its malice, going on to haunt the unsuspecting at their time of thanks and celebration. For the most part, this time would continue without incident, but something approached that would shake the very foundations of the world, ensuring that Terraria would never be the same. While the world of man still struggled to recover from its many trials, a great cosmic terror descended from the sky, corrupting and enslaving everything it touched. The outer god Nyarlathotep had come, the cosmic era begun, and the world as everyone knew it was over. In short order, the nymphs ventured out from their jungle to banish this terror, but were washed away, leaving only one high dryad to hold the power of the nymphs, with all others either killed or corrupted into a twisted reflection of their old selves. The sirens of the sky were corrupted into vicious harpies, and nearly every creature of Terraria was twisted into an unrecognizable abomination. Enraged by the corruption of the world, the last dryad poured her hate and malice into the jungle, causing it to go wild, becoming an impenetrable fortress that would burrow into the earth, down to the underworld, and challenge the forces of hell itself. Inside the fortress, the Dryad birthed a monstrosity she intended to destroy the cosmic horror with. But as the hour of her revenge grew near, she realized how she had betrayed the mandate of the nymphs, and used her creation instead to defend the last bastion of civilization in the world, the Lihzahrd Temple. Beyond the jungle, the terrible chaotic being used its slaves to build great monuments, and consumed their life force when they were of no more use. There were those who escaped, however, ones who travelled underground to seek salvation, but through the tainted subterranean water they were granted never-ending life, with their bodies rotting away, leaving them as nothing but skeletons. This was still preferable, though, to the fate of one young explorer who found himself trapped for an eternity in a spider's nest, to be consumed over and over. In this time there was one slave who seemed to resist all that was thrown at him, a seemingly old, frail man who was in fact kin to Nyarlathotep. Nodens, having forgotten his past throughout the ages on Terraria, now became of great interest to the Chaos God, for after eons of rule over this world, his great body grew weak and began to wither, polluting the world with what would be dubbed corruption. And so he would use his human slaves to build a great temple into the ground, and beckon to the stars for salvation. This salvation would come too late, as Nyarlathotep left the ageless old man to protect his temple, imbuing him with a portion of his power. Little did the old man know that this power was really the soul of Nyarlathotep, allowing the cosmic god to live forever in another body. With the supposed death of the cosmic scourge, Terraria tried to return to the state in which it had once existed, but the corruption was relentless and consumed everything it touched. It was now that the last Dryad, many times reincarnated from who she was when she had birthed Plantera, travelled out into the world and back to her ancestral home so that she may take the light of the world unto herself and cleanse the corruption. Instead, the light perverted her into a being of radiance, transforming swaths of Terraria into the hollow. Within the jungle, unaware of the ongoing strife outside, hives of engorged bees fought for dominance in their hostile environment, while others tried to harness the corruption to devastating results. Soon enough, Nyarlathotep's call would be answered by Cthulhu, the clone brother of the Moonlord, who would create a staging ground in the oceans, enthralling the native merfolk to build him a great sunken city and bribe the pirates of the surface waters to be his scouts. So too he would transform a lesser creature who had sought out his great power into a guardian of the ocean and do his bidding forevermore. Eventually he would attempt to invade the land, but soon came into conflict with the Radiant Dryad, the Empress of Light, and while defeating her many times, she refused to stay dead, so he resorted to capturing her power of light, wiping out the hollow in the process, and descended to the underworld, tearing his own flesh away to imprison it, and tasking the old builders, now twisted demons, with its protection. Confident that his foe was defeated, Cthulhu returned to his conquest, but did not expect the resilience of man to shine through, as a hero faced him down and tore apart his body. To the hero's surprise, the body parts lived on without their master, and while he was able to defeat one of the Old One's eyes, he was seen off by its monstrous disembodied brain, the horrendous entity having created its own land of blood and festering viscera, the Crimson. Rather than fight the abominations again, he would go on to learn forbidden knowledge from the dungeon and its sinister inhabitants, and finally descend into the underworld to bind the power of darkness to the flesh Cthulhu had left in order to pacify the terrors he had failed to defeat, even giving his own soul to ensure the writhing mass of flesh did not become a terror unto itself. No longer able to fight, the hero would spend the next age searching for one to take up his mantle, his body ageless, now deprived of a soul. While the corruption indeed still exists, and Cthulhu's body parts still terrorize the world, Terraria fell into a restless peace, with various human kingdoms rising and falling. In one such kingdom, a princess was born, one who felt trapped by the snow and ice that beset her land. As she grew up, however, she came to think of the cold as a friend, and was eventually taken in by the creatures of a dark forest. From here she became the Ice Queen, and would haunt Terraria's villagers in her own unique way, as vengeance for the loneliness she felt growing up. She would even bear a child to the forest, a foul, twisted creature that she would quickly abandon, but having inherited her powers, the child survived, and grew as bitter as his mother, until the day came when he was set upon by his own creations, and finally saved by his wayward mother, who would revert him back to a child, so that he may grow up once more, this time at her side. Meanwhile, deep underground, the long-lost refugee from the corrupt age would finally escape the hell he had been subjected to in the spider's nest, and go on to uncover what had happened to his people, finding that they had been enslaved by the Medusas, the mutated lizards from long ago. Becoming a merchant to gather resources in an attempt to cure his people, the merchant would eventually build an army consisting of the remnants of his people that he would lead against the Medusas in a great subterranean war that would push back and seal their enemy away in a marble tomb. No longer needed, the merchant's army would come to travel to Terraria, eventually settling in the dungeon, ready for if the threat of the Medusas were ever to return. Elsewhere, the wizards of old slowly succumbed to their own great power, with one becoming a nightmarish creature, influenced by the corruption, but most simply losing their minds, becoming the foul magic wielders of legend. Only one retained any semblance of himself, but this would come at the cost of becoming naught but a doddering old fool. Away from Terraria, and believing that he had complete control over his armies, the Moonlord had in fact been controlled by the Stardust Weavers from the beginning, but in their complacency he had broken free, and they were forced to find a way to stop his plans. They would descend to Terraria to offer a deal to the one who had defeated Cthulhu. While the hero had spent many centuries searching for a suitable champion to replace him, they would suggest that he merely created one. To do this, first he must seek out the elixir of life though, the blood of the gods. Doing so angered the usually placid Eternals however, and they deemed that if one used their blood for endless life, then all would, and thus the curse of the undead and the blood moon fell upon Terraria, creating zombies, restless ghosts, and eventually mutant creatures from the ocean depths, even awakening the long dead merfolk as bloodthirsty horrors. Regardless, the hero and the weavers created a being who would, it was hoped, be a great champion and bring an end to the turmoil that plagued the world. Starting with nothing but the heirlooms the old hero had begun his own journey with, now stepping back to become but a guide, this new champion would undertake many great deeds, growing stronger with each one. They would defeat Cthulhu's wayward body parts, unite the scattered peoples of Terraria, and halt the corruption and Crimson's growth. They would even free Nodens to an extent, breaking Nyarlathotep's age-old curse over him, and eventually travel to the underworld, defeating the Wall of Flesh, and releasing the forces of light and dark. With this came a new menace however, for the Hallow and its guardian had returned, the voracious spread of the biome threatening a secluded city-state of steampunkers. To counter the threat, they created the Contaminator, only for it to be stolen by one of the scientists and taken to the champion so that they may do more good with it. Seeing his plans being thwarted, it was now that the Moonlord subdued and wrested control of the great mind of Yog-Sothoth, building it into a great cosmic machine. Incorporating a part of himself into it also, the Moonlord tore away his legs as an offering to his creation, and devouring the cores of entire worlds to do so, he birthed mechanical replicas of Cthulhu's fallen body parts to destroy this champion of Terraria. But as with everything else, these would also be defeated, but the machine was not left dormant, for over the eons, a blight had festered beyond the known universe, something that would now spill into Terraria's reality, collecting Cthulhu's remains, and using the Moonlord's cosmic engine to house them in a metal body of death that would come to be known as Okram, the blighted curse of Terraria. A force so powerful that it was only stopped when the creators of Terraria's very universe, creatures above even the old and outer gods, tore it from reality, condemning it to the eternal void. Investigating its growing restlessness, and in search of ways to better their skills, the champion would venture into the jungle and the Lihzahrd Temple, defeating both Plantera and the Golem, and uncovering the long-lost secret to summoning the eclipse. Upon their return, they would repel the opportunistic schemings of the Martians and attempt to maintain a peace in Terraria, but the destruction of the jungle and temple guardians had allowed the old Lihzahrd fanatics to escape from the temple and call to the Lord of the Moon from Nyarlathotep's ancient beacon. Despite their attempts to stop them, the champion was too late, and the celestial armies were unleashed upon the world. Going on to battle these forces, the champion would ultimately come face to face with the Moonlord himself, going on to finally slay the cosmic deity, and at last bringing an end to the era of hardship and strife. In the wake of the Moonlord's fall, Terraria rejoiced, for it was finally free from the stranglehold of the celestial gods, or at least this is what most in the world believed. In truth, there was still a great deal to be done. Not yet able to rest, the champion continued to cleanse the corruption and crimson, forever dogged by the Hallow's Empress of Light, and not yet knowing the full extent of the Moonlord's plans. For even though he had been killed, the crimson seed even now grew within Terraria, threatening to transform the world into a vast cosmic ovum that would one day usher forth the Moonlord's perfect fifth race, and a dread god reborn to lead them. Then there was the subject of the shadow flame that still burnt darkly at the planet's core, its potential to snuff out all life in an instant, forever like a sword of Damocles above all who would ever live on Terraria. Rumours even circulated of a forgotten caste of fire giants who slumbered in the vast magma lakes deep below the surface. Indeed, while this new era is where our tale ends, new stories are still to be told, and old ones yet to be uncovered. And while these legends often contradict the tales of more reputable sources, they show the heart and imagination of everyone who travels through this world. For Terraria is not a place where stories are told, but a place where they are made, with every hero and champion having their own unique tale to tell, and where each and every one of them is as special as the next. Thank you for watching, everyone. That was a bit of a monster video, but I hope you enjoyed it. I probably missed out some minor details here and there, but they're probably not large enough to really worry about in the grand scheme of things. Besides, all of this is told in detail in each of my Lore Store videos, so you can go and watch them if you want. If you did like the video, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe for more like it, and consider becoming a patron or channel member to support the channel in the future. Other than that, I just hope you all have a great day.